Call the meeting for February 15th to order. Our plans for today are to work bills previously heard. I think to make it easier, we will go in numerical order from where we started. So let's start with Senate Bill 338, which was the group funded pools. Eileen, can you give us a quick review?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, committee. Senate Bill 338 modified the reporting requirements of group-funded liability and group-funded worker compensation pools. This was the bill that granted 3 extra months to those pools for submitting their certified independent audited financial statements to the commissioner.
Okay, committee, are there any questions on that? Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee move favorably out of committee SB 338.
Is there a second? Gossage seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. 338 is on its way to the floor. Let's go to Senate Bill 339, which is the most riveting bill we have every year. Eileen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 339 is my absolute favorite bill of the year. This is the update to the date on risk-based capital instructions in effect.
Any questions? Is there a motion? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we pass Senate Bill number 339 favorably out of this committee.
Is there a second? Fagg seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 339 is on its way to the floor. Let's go to 340, which is the Auto Club bill. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 340 would remove the term automobile club from the definition of person for purposes of enforcement of violations of insurance law and for those entities under the commissioner's jurisdiction.
Okay, any questions for Eileen? Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee move favorably out of committee SB 340.
Okay. Senator Pittman seconds. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 340 is on its way to the floor. Let's go to 345, which was the commercial finance disclosure bill. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 345 is enacting the Commercial Financing Disclosure Act and would require certain disclosures in commercial financing transactions.
Okay. Any questions of Eileen? Is there a motion? Or Senator Warren, you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just discussion. Thank you. I thought we were for questions for Eileen. I don't have any. But.
Okay. Is there a motion on the bill? Senator Fagg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that the committee move favorably out of committee SB 345.
Okay. Is there a second? Dietrich seconds now. Discussion. Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I could remember correctly, I'm looking at our agenda for the day we heard Senate Bill 345, and that was the one where we had proponents from Maryland, and there, I think, was one opponent who was from Kansas City. So I'm wondering if there was any follow-up on Kansas entities or individuals impacted, and I think this was the one that 4 or 5 other states have enacted, and New York and Illinois and maybe Florida and California. And so I didn't know if there'd been any follow-up hearing from Kansas entity or individuals. And
thank you, Senator Warren. I don't think we had opponents on the bill. We had one listed, but they decided not to testify. As I understand it, there was a thought a list that was distributed of Kansas companies that were using this. But Senator Dietrich says we have an email on it that was sent.
Was the email proponent businesses in favor of it in Kansas?
Senator Dietrich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We got a list distributed by John Monroe via email. I got it twice because I missed it the first time. So,
Oh, well, I must have missed it as well. But okay, thanks for clarifying, and thank you for the discussion. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, let's go to Senate Bill 356, which Eileen calls the reasonable bill. So give us a reasonable explanation, will you?
It depends on your definition of reasonable, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 356 would place a reasonable requirement on per diem amounts, expenses, and funding for examinations. And it, probably the more important part of the bill, it establishes a tiered fee structure for examinations of insurance companies and societies based on their gross premiums collected.
Okay, is there questions of Eileen? See none, is there a motion? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Dietrich seconds. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 356 is on its way to the floor. Okay, let's go to Senate Bill 398, which was the fee bill. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 398 is the bill that would allow the commissioner to set fees up to a ceiling of the amount that the fee is currently published in statute. It would require the commissioner to set the fee for the upcoming year by December 1st of the current year and publish the fee amount in the Kansas Register.
Okay. Any questions of Eileen? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Gossage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that we pass out Senate Bill 398 favorably.
For a second. Senator Olson seconds. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 398 is on its way to the floor. Okay, let's go to Senate Bill 405, which was the KUSA Securities Act. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 405 amends the Kansas Uniform Securities Act. Under current law, only an individual in control of someone violating the act can be disciplined by the administrator. Senate Bill 405 would add a provision stating that a person directly or indirectly, when that person controls someone who is engaging, about to engage, or has engaged in an action constituting a violation of the act or rule or regulation promulgated thereunder, can be held to the same discipline as the violating person, unless that person did not know or could not reasonably have known of the violating person's actions or behavior.
Okay. Any questions of Eileen? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Olson? Is there a second? Holscher seconds. Any discussion? Senator Warren?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When we heard this bill, I had a lot of questions about control person liability, and this would bring that person, the control person, under the authority and the jurisdiction of the I guess the Securities Commissioner, and that's, to me, a concern because, again, we're, expanding government, and I understand the purpose of the bill, and I had questions about the definition of control person, and at the time of the hearing, there couldn't be located one. However, with some further discussion and follow-up with the Department of Insurance, there is currently a definition in rules and regs for control person or control in 81-1-1 under the Office of the Securities Commissioner. And here's the definition. Control is defined to mean the possession of the power to direct or influence the direction of the management or policies of a person directly or indirectly through the ownership of voting securities by contract or by other means. Now, I had a question about, do we want indirectly in the bill? Because, gosh, that could be anybody, and you're creating a duty to exercise reasonable care for anybody who has indirect control of a person. Seeing that directly or indirectly is already incorporated into the definition in rules and regs eases my concern a bit. And we also have a definition of controlling person in rules and regs, and that is means a person who has control of any other person, which I guess isn't all that helpful now that I look at it. But so I'm just sharing with the committee that it's not wholly undefined what control person means. It's not in statutes, it's in regulations, and, you know, gives me a little bit less concern, but nonetheless, you know, we would be creating a duty of the exercise of reasonable care for a person not already under the jurisdiction of the Securities Exchange Commissioner. So just sharing some information that I learned and that it is currently in regulation as definition. Thank you.
I appreciate you bringing that forward. I know we had some concerns when we discussed it. Maybe that's something that we can encourage the Securities Office to clean up in rules and regs on this bill, that they can make it clear what their intentions are.
That would be helpful. You know, I asked Eileen to work on a proposed amendment that she was kind enough to do, I hear, at 2 a.m. This morning, along with the other things she's been working on. And, you know, the proposed amendment was to strike indirectly. And I'm not putting forth the amendment, just wanted to suggest it to committee that, you know, indirectly is awfully broad, and for a person not otherwise licensed by the commission. But anyway, because I would like to see some cleanup of what does indirectly mean, and you could ensnare a whole lot of people under this new duty that might not be a good idea.
I'll certainly have some conversations with the Securities Commissioner, and maybe it's something that we can discuss in conference also. Any further discussion, Senator Pittman?
No, I was just going to say I completely agree with Senator Warren on this. I think this is kind of a broad area that could be subject to subjectivity from the insurance department, and indirectly having responsibility on some of these entities doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So I would have supported that, but I would like to see us clean this up over the next year if we can and just understand the scope. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate the comment. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, we have a motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 405 is on the way to the floor. Let's turn our attention to Senate Bill 406, the KMTA bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 406 would repeal the current Kansas Money Transmitter Act and would enact the Kansas Money Transmission Act, based largely upon the Council of State Bank Commissioners Supervisors, Council of State Bank Supervisors Money Transmission Modernization Act. This would attempt some sort of standardization across the country and update based on the advances made in money transmission since the original act was enacted.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Eileen? Okay, committee, we had testimony that we needed an amendment to make sure that we kept the CPAs and the bookkeeping and that type of thing out of the bill. So if I could get a motion on the bill first, and then we can discuss the proposed amendments. So Senator Olson. Senator Pittman seconds. Okay, now discussion. Senator Fagg.
Ready for the amendment, so we'll let
That's where we're at.
Okay, so we're ready for that. Mr. Chairman, I move that I've got an amendment that Eileen will explain for us. Probably easier for her.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was informed and worked with the Office of the State Bank Commissioner to add a exemption. So on page 7, if you flip the page of your balloon, on page 7, we're going to add a person engaging in the practice of law, bookkeeping, accounting, real estate sales, or brokerage to the list of entities that are exempt from the act.
Okay, any discussion on the amendment? Senator Fagg, you want to move the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we move the amendment on Senate Bill 406 as presented.
And Senator Pittman seconds. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. The amendment is adopted. What is the pleasure of the committee on the bill as amended? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Fagg seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. 406 as amended is headed to the floor. Let's now turn our attention to Senate Bill 423 on board appointments. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 423 grants the Commissioner of Insurance ability to decrease the number of appointed board members on those boards that fall under her jurisdiction. And it also adds the ability for the board members to be removable for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance.
Any questions of Eileen? Okay, is there a motion on 423? Senator Olson? And is there a second? Senator Gossage? Eileen, do we have a true technical amendment on this bill?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we certainly do. We have a true technical amendment. It's a technical amendment because it's truly technical and has no substantive effect. If you flip the page of the balloon that was provided and look on lines 27, 28, and 29, currently it says 1 representing domestic or foreign insurance companies, 1 representing independent insurance agents, and 1 representing underground storage tank owners and operators. I need to insert the word member after the word 1 just to make clear that these are board members. Again, it's not a substantive change, but it would add consistency throughout these statutes.
Okay, any questions on the amendment? Senator Fagg?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we move this amendment on 423 favorably.
Is there a second on the amendment? Senator Dietrich seconds. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We're back on the bill. What is the pleasure of the committee on Senate Bill 423 as amended? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Gossage seconds. Sorry, I need to look to my left also. Okay, on the motion, we have as amended on 423, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, let's turn our attention to Senate Bill 495. Ought to be very familiar to us. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This Senate Bill 495 is the bill that gave me fits and nights of no sleep. It's also the one that modifies certain terms, conditions, definitions, deadlines, and provisions contained in the Uniform Consumer Credit Code, I beg your pardon, and it transfers mortgage provisions from the UCCC to the KMBA and then updates certain other language and terms as we discussed.
Any questions of Eileen? Okay, is there a motion on 495? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Holscher seconds. The chair has an amendment. I would like to remove the contents of House Bill 2247 and insert Senate Bill 495 into 2247. Is there a second on that motion? Olson seconds. Any discussion? Senator Pittman.
Can you remind me why we're doing that?
Actually, the speaker asked me to do that so that they could make sure that they get it through in an expedient manner. Senator Warren.
Thank you. And what was House Bill 2247?
It's actually a shell from last year that's empty.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. What is the pleasure on House Bill 2247 as amended? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Kluse seconds. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, let's turn our attention to House Bill 2105. Eileen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill 2105 was the bill that we kind of heard the base bill and then the amendments to the bill at the same time. This is the bill that would enact the Kansas Earned Wage Access Services Act.
Thank you, Eileen. Committee, are there questions of Eileen? Okay, committee, if you will remember, right, we did discuss House Bill 2105 was a bill left over from last year, and during the off season, all of the interested parties got together and came up with a compromise and a much better bill. We described both of those simultaneously in the committee. So the first thing that we need to do is to adopt the balloon on 2105, which was the new language. So what's the pleasure of the committee on that? Senator Dietrich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move that the committee adopt the balloon on House Bill 2105.
Kluse seconds. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. We are back on the bill as amended on House Bill 2105. What's the pleasure of the committee? Senator Olson. Is there a second? Senator Holscher seconds. Any discussion? Senator Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee may recall during the hearing, I had asked for information from the proponents. Well, how is this being used in Kansas? How does this impact Kansas businesses if this is something that can already be done in Kansas? And they were gracious enough to answer my question and provide me some information, and I just wanted to share it real quick with the committee and those in the audience. So we have Casey's General Stores with 4,100 users in Kansas, Dollar Tree with the same 4,100 users in Kansas, Target 3,200 users in Kansas, Hy-Vee about 700, Greater Wichita YMCA 450, Associated Wholesale Grocers 400, and there's a list of about 20 others or so more. So I was glad to see that we do have a population of Kansans that are already using this service, this app, and that if we can provide some rules and guardrails for it in statute, that would be a helpful thing. So thank you, Mr. Chair. And
any further discussion? Thank you for bringing that, Senator Warren. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Committee, that completes our work for today. Thank you very much. Clearly, if we would have had more bills, we could have worked more bills. We will not meet tomorrow. We will not meet on Monday. And I told you we would not meet on Tuesday, but I did get a bill in last night that I need to take a look at. So we'll remain meeting on a call of the chair on Tuesday. And stay tuned to your email Not planning on meeting, but if I need to, then we'll have that day as available. Any other business to come before the committee? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned.